I still struggle to process what went down that morning. There I was, standing in my driveway, coffee in hand, enjoying the calm of the day, when the unmistakable growl of my Lamborghini's engine ripped through the quiet. My stomach dropped instantly. I hadn't even touched the keys. I looked up just in time to see a teenager, maybe 16 or 17, sliding into the driver's seat with all the swagger of someone who thought the world belonged to him. His confidence was unreal, almost cartoonishly bold, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment his entire life. And then he opened his mouth. "Relax," he said with a smirk, hands on the wheel. "My mom said she can take whatever she wants. This car is ours now." I froze, stunned. My Lamborghini, the very car I had sacrificed countless nights and early mornings for, the reward of years of hustle, was being claimed by a stranger's kid as if it were a hand-me-down toy. The arrogance was staggering. I stepped forward, voice steady, and commanded, "Get out of my car, now!" But he didn't even twitch. Instead, he pressed his foot on the gas, revving the engine like a challenge, glaring at me as though I was trespassing. In that instant, the world slowed down. I could see it in his eyes, the cocky assurance that being Karen's son gave him immunity. The kind of entitlement you hear about but rarely witness this blatantly. My hand tightened around my phone. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911 before he could roll the car an inch further. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Chill, man, it's just a car. My mom will smooth this over." The words made my blood boil. Fix this? As if laws didn't apply to him. As if my Lamborghini, the one I had poured blood, sweat, and sacrifice into, was nothing more than his plaything. I imagined the nightmare escalating, scratches, dents, maybe even a dangerous chase. But I had the truth on my side. Security footage, my eyewitness account, and, most importantly, the law. Then it happened. He actually tried to take off. The tires screeched against the driveway, rubber burning against concrete, as I lunged forward, yanking on the door handle to stop him. The engine howled, neighbors peeking from their curtains, and in that split second I realized this wasn't a joke or a dare or some teenage prank. He was really trying to steal my car. My mind raced. How reckless could someone so young be? Then, salvation. The wail of sirens grew louder, closer. Turns out my neighbor, watching from their porch, had already called the cops after seeing the chaos. Adrenaline pumped through me, equal parts fear, fury, and grim satisfaction. Suddenly, the boy's bravado crumbled. The smirk drained from his face, replaced with wide-eyed panic. When the squad cars pulled up, lights flashing red and blue, he froze at the wheel, hands raised high. His arrogance evaporated in an instant. The police ordered him out, cuffed him, and just like that, the fantasy ended. The untouchable son was arrested on the spot. My Lamborghini sat untouched, its engine purring mockingly, as though it too knew justice had been served. But the ordeal didn't end there. As the patrol car disappeared down the block, my phone buzzed. The caller ID flashed a name I wished I'd never see again. Karen. Her voice hit me like nails on glass, dripping with venomous superiority. "Do you have any idea who you're messing with? My son can do whatever he wants. You're going to regret this." I nearly laughed out of disbelief. Her son had just been caught red-handed trying to steal my Lamborghini, and yet she had the gall to call me the problem. I steadied my voice, keeping it calm but firm. "Your son tried to steal my car. That's a crime. The law doesn't care who he is." There was a pause, heavy and calculating, before she let out a sharp, mocking laugh that made my skin crawl. "You don't get it, do you? My son's inheritance, my influence, we get whatever we want. You'll see." It was clear entitlement ran in the family. She had lived her life believing rules were bent for people like her. But what she didn't seem to realize was that this time, the evidence was stacked against them, and law enforcement wasn't budging. I spent the rest of that exhausting day filing reports, giving my statement, and reviewing the crystal-clear security footage that showed her son's failed theft attempt from start to finish. The image of his smug face gripping my steering wheel replayed in my head, a perfect mix of tragic and infuriating. Neighbors trickled over one by one, buzzing with curiosity. Some looked shocked, others amused, but all wanted the story straight from me. And judging by their reactions, tales of Karen's family antics weren't new. But seeing them finally hit a wall, a Lamborghini, my Lamborghini, had shaken the whole block. What really stuck with me, though, was the lesson beneath it all. Entitlement isn't just obnoxious, it's dangerous. When kids grow up believing they're untouchable, they don't just test boundaries, they bulldoze them. And when that happens, the fallout can be swift, humiliating, and very, very public. By evening, the police updated me. Charges had been filed and the process had begun. For the first time all day, a wave of calm washed over me. Justice wasn't theoretical, it was real, and it was happening in front of me. But before I could relax, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Karen. This time, her tone had shifted. Less arrogance, more desperation. A trace of fear that hadn't been there before. Her son's arrest had rattled her, cracked her illusion of control. Still, I knew one thing for certain. Karen wasn't done. And if she made another move, it was going to be big. The next morning, I stepped outside to check on the car, grateful it was safe. But peace didn't last. A sleek black SUV rolled slowly to the end of my driveway. My stomach tightened. The tinted windows made it impossible to see who was inside. But deep down, I already knew, sure enough. The door opened, and out stepped Karen. Flanked by two large men, she strutted forward, heels striking the concrete with a rhythm of pure fury. Her expression was twisted with rage and disbelief. "This is absurd," she snapped, brandishing her phone like a weapon. "You had no right to involve the police. My son. I stood my ground, voice low but resolute. "Your son tried to steal my Lamborghini." "That's a crime. That's why he was arrested. End of story." Her eyes narrowed into a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Do you have any idea who I am? Who is my family? We don't lose, and we don't forgive." I couldn't help but marvel at the ridiculousness of it all. A grown woman, standing in my driveway, hurling threats at me to defend her son's crime. And yet I had to admit, there was an edge of intimidation to it. People had gathered, whispering, recording with their phones. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was a full-blown public spectacle, entitlement and reality colliding for everyone to witness. Karen's arrogance only grew louder. She leaned toward my Lamborghini, snapping pictures of the interior like she could prove ownership through social media. "This car should be ours," she barked. "Do you have any idea how much money we have?" I stepped forward, my voice firm and steady. "No amount of money gives you the right to steal or threaten someone. Take all the pictures you want. It won't change the fact that this car isn't yours, and it never will be." The standoff reached its breaking point when one of her men reached for the driver's side door handle. Instinct took over. I planted myself in front of him, hand gripping the door. "Stop! This is private property." "Step back!" The air seemed to freeze. For a second, nobody moved. Karen's face contorted with disbelief. For once, she understood that no matter how loudly she shouted, no matter how many threats she spat, nothing could undo the truth. The evidence, the police reports, the witnesses. They were all against her. Finally, with a storm of muttered curses, Karen spun on her heel and marched back toward her SUV. Her men trailed behind, shoulders slumped, as defeated as she looked. I watched them drive off, feeling relief and vindication roll over me in equal measure. My Lamborghini remained untouched, my driveway safe, but the whole ordeal left me with a chilling thought. People raised to believe the world bows to them can be shockingly bold, but the moment reality punches back, they crumble just as quickly. That day marked a shift. Karen had tried to intimidate me, but her entitlement had met its limit. I knew, however, that the saga wasn't over. There were legal consequences ahead, lessons waiting to be learned, and one final twist that would shatter Karen's illusions completely. A few days later, the situation escalated further. The police called with updates. Karen's son was now facing formal charges: attempted theft, trespassing, reckless endangerment. And, in a satisfying twist, the arrest report even documented Karen's threats and her attempt to intimidate me. The system wasn't just protecting my Lamborghini, it was sending a clear signal. Entitlement and arrogance hold no weight against the law. The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Gossip hit a fever pitch. Everyone was buzzing about the teenager who had tried to steal a Lamborghini while leaning on his mother's so-called influence, only to be humiliated in front of an entire block. And of course, the follow-up confrontation, Karen herself storming my driveway, was caught on video from half a dozen angles. People shared clips, whispered stories, and shook their heads in disbelief. But the most dramatic turn came when Karen tried to flex her connections. She called attorneys, rattled off names she thought mattered, even hinted at suing me. None of it worked. The evidence was ironclad. Between the security footage, the witness testimonies, and the official reports, her case was dead before it started. The final court hearing sealed it. The tension in that courtroom was thick enough to cut. Karen and her son sat side by side, their faces pale and sour. The judge, a stern woman with no patience for excuses, looked them straight in the eye. "No one, regardless of wealth, family name, or age, is above the law," she said firmly. "Attempted theft is a crime. Threats against a private citizen will not be tolerated." The verdict landed like a hammer. Karen's son was convicted, sentenced to probation and mandatory community service. As for Karen, she was formally warned. Any further harassment and she'd face charges of her own. On top of that, she was ordered to keep her distance from me and my property. Watching her entitlement crumble in that courtroom was more satisfying than I could have imagined. What lingered with me most, though, was the broader lesson. Not just for Karen or her son, but for everyone who witnessed the saga unfold. Privilege might puff people up, make them believe they're invincible, but it doesn't erase facts. It doesn't erase video evidence. It doesn't silence witnesses or bend the law. In the end, arrogance collapses under the weight of reality, and justice speaks louder than any empty threats. A week later, I stood in my driveway once more. The Lamborghini gleamed under the sun, every flawless panel and polished curve reminding me of that surreal morning. I would never forget the sight of a teenager, bold enough to claim my car as his own, or the fury of a mother convinced that money and power could rewrite the rules. But what I'd remember most was the outcome. The day arrogance was humbled, entitlement was stripped bare, and justice stood tall for everyone to see. From that point on, Karen and her son's reputation in the neighborhood was ruined. Their story had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that arrogance might roar, but it never outlasts the voice of truth. And as I looked at my Lamborghini, safe and secure, I knew one thing for certain: no matter how loud entitlement screams, the law always has the final word. If you enjoyed this wild Karen story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps this channel grow, and trust me, I've got even more unbelievable stories coming your way.